Devin.
Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. You're keeping it low key right now. I see your energy level.
My
Kind
energy
of kind of
level.
kind of easing into things. That's nice. That's nice. How was your week so far?
So far, it's been pretty good. It was a tumultuous week, sort of, in terms of
Tumultuous.
tumultuous in terms of my own energy level. So it's interesting you pick up on that. And yeah, it was a pretty good week. I did successfully. I have been challenged
Okay.
by one of my coaches to cut down my work day. And so what I've done is, you'll be impressed by me, hopefully.
All
I feel
right.
like you can relate to this. What I have done is I have ended my work day every day this week by 3 p.m.
Oh, okay. When do you start
Well,
generally? Or maybe we don't need to get into those details, but there's structure. You're creating structure within your day, and you're keeping to that.
I'm
And
trying. Yes, I'm really trying.
well, good. I know we've talked about this in the past, is getting that structure. And I know this past several weeks, I've been traveling quite a bit, and it's tough to have that structure when you're traveling because your meeting times are different. You're in different time zones, and it can be very challenging. But I think it's something, as we've discussed in the past, that you can do if you're very intentional about blocking out that time within each of your days, even though it may shift from time to time. Within each day, plan accordingly so that you can get the tasks that you need to get done. And so, again, we've talked about time management. We've talked about, creating kind of the important tasks that need to get done and blocking it out in such a way that we can attack them very, very bite-sized portions, so that we can get that level of success on a daily basis. But we also realize that there's, we have so much focus on how to manage our time and how we're spending our time. But that's only part of the equation, right? Because we have to manage how we are actually spending that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the more important aspect of when we are trying to improve our performance really doesn't come back always to the time management, because all of us have a certain amount of time, but not all of us have that same energy level compared to other people, but also compared to across our day, across our week, across our month even. So I think that when we look at how we can hack or make these improvements to what we do, how much we get done, and how we feel about it, coming back to the energy side of things is really important.
Yeah. So it's one thing to manage your time, but you can have very organized blocks of time, but if you're not effectively managing the energy that you have to execute the tasks within those blocks, you're not going to get them done efficiently. So we're talking about energy management
Energy
versus
management.
time management.
Yes, absolutely. So I really like this topic because this is something that I have kind of discovered on my own through my own journey, because I have pretty much always considered myself a high performer, at least a high achiever, always had good numbers in terms of corporate and how I was doing. But I found myself at different points in my career, like really, really depleted and burnout. I've talked not extensively, but I've talked often about my history with different chronic illness conditions and things that have kind of impacted how I felt and how I was able to perform. And I think a lot of people are in that same boat, and you can't just push through it continuously. We do have to have a level of self-awareness. And so I
Okay.
think when we come to just approach this topic, having that self-awareness of how are your energy levels, that can give us a lot of really valuable information.
Okay. It's tough though, right? I mean, from my vantage point, it's easy to think about time management. It's easy to kind of break that down. But when we start, I think for many people, this concept of energy management is a little foreign, right?
Yeah.
And you just mentioned the importance of self-awareness. And I think a lot of us can relate to how we feel at the beginning of the day, how we feel at the end of the day, but may not have that level of awareness as to how our energy levels kind of ebb and flow throughout the course of a day.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, we've jam-packed everything into our day, right? Like we have the color-coded calendar, we have the time blocks or the checklist. And so it's like I know for me, I can be really easy to get stuck in the trap of just like guzzling more caffeine and being like, okay, let's just push through this, let's go. You got to do, or having a really important meeting after lunchtime. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have to have a cappuccino with my lunch today because I am sluggish right now. And I want to really bring my A game. And that's always not the most compassionate choice for us.
Well,
right?
Hold on. Let's break that. Let's pause for a minute there and talk about that. Because I think for many people, that's kind of how they kickstart their day, right? Or, maybe it's, it's real, or maybe it's become real in our minds because that's what we tell ourselves. But I think, I've done the same thing where I kind of have this mentality of, I can't do anything until I've had my cup of coffee. We can't, we've seen it on coffee mugs and we've seen people say that before. But I'll say that early on in my career, when I started, I'd get into the office early, and I would go through, this is terrible, I would actually go through an entire pot of coffee before the next person came into the office. And I was all amped up, and I was getting stuff done. And it, not a good long-term strategy and not something that I maintain, but it was something that, I sort of had that caffeine jolt, and it gave me that burst of energy that got me through the sluggishness of the morning and then allowed me to start. And I think a lot of people rely on that. A lot of people use that sort of as a crutch. But I think for a lot of people, it does work for them. So, what are there alternatives to that? Or, do you start your day with a cup of coffee?
Okay, so this has been a point of contention here because I have lived that life as well. I am notorious for going my whole entire day, and the only thing that I've actually eaten or like would count as calories is coffee. And that is horrible. Luckily now my husband makes me breakfast, and I've resorted to having some really easy lunch opportunities. So it's like, okay, yeah, you can have a sandwich, you can have a smoothie, add some protein powder. But I will say that coffee guzzling, that's an easy trap for us to fall into. And for the way that it just seemed like my life went, or having trouble adulting or something, it was not me coming back to these very nourishing times and these breaks in the day. So I have fallen into the coffee trap. Now I have some rules around it that I try to follow 9 out of 10 times. And so I don't start my day with coffee. I start my day with some movement. And that has been, for me, just an absolute game changer, because I have a positive start to my day and I am moving my body. And that's a really big one, because I I sit a lot during my day. Before this week, I was working quite a lot as well at my desk. So I'm trying to reel that in a little bit and just be better to my body, and feel really good. I had a few episodes back, I had like a crick in my neck, and that was no good. So I'm getting these signals that I need to take some care. And so what I do is a 10 to 15 minute easy workout. So really just like morning movement. I found a YouTuber that is amazing for this. Her name is Monica Fit on YouTube, Monica with a K. I will link her YouTube channel in the description because she is phenomenal. It's my favorite way to wake up with all the different morning routines I've tried. And then what I do after is then I shower and then I take a cold plunge.
Oh, okay.
And I am telling you what, nothing gives me more energy than doing that in that order. And then after that's completed, that is a very short morning routine. I can do all of that in about 20 minutes or so. Wow. And then, so I like simplicity. I don't like it to be overcomplicated. I want to be consistent in it. And if I had to do something, I know if I have to work out for 45 minutes in the morning, I'm not going to get that done because I need to get the day going and I don't want to wake up earlier. So for me, this is what works. I do make sure that I get those 8 hours of sleep a night. I'm pretty big on like 8 to 9, 7. I'm not on my A game if I get 7.
Yeah.
So 8 to 9 hours, I wake up, I do my morning movement, I do my shower and then my cold plunge. And then I have that first and generally only cup of coffee for the day.
Well, yeah. And I think you hit on something that's really important. And that is taking care of yourself physically by giving yourself getting enough sleep. Yes. And that's one of the things that I really deprived myself of, early on in my career. This whole mentality that you have to work, get in early, start work early, work late nights. And that's what suffered. That was the compromise, is I wasn't getting sleep. And I was down to, there were times when, you're working on a deadline, I was averaging 4 to 5 hours of sleep, which is not good. It's not healthy. And it's not something that you can maintain in the long term. And so getting enough sleep, that is key. I know that for a lot of people, and I've done it before as well, you start your day by going to the gym or working out. And I'll say that in the times that I have done that, it's been phenomenal, because it really gets you going. And when you're done with that, you are focused and you've got a high level of energy and you're ready to tackle the day. And I've never felt so much energy as, when I was doing that. The flip side is you get really tired early in the evening, which is fine, because then now you're going to, go into a cycle where you're giving yourself enough time to sleep and recuperate and recover in the evening. You touched on it as well, though, is that for many people is not something that's sustainable. It's hard to do that. And for me, I start my day, I get up usually around 4 because I do a lot of work. I'm located in Portland, Oregon. And so I'm on the West Coast, but I do a lot of work on the East Coast. And so I have to be basically on working by 5 a.m. local time. And so it's really hard to try to get myself to get up early to do that. But it is something that works for a lot of people. And that can be a great alternative to just, guzzling gallons of coffee. So that was kind of the morning setup, is how we prime ourselves in the morning with that level of energy. So as our day goes on, how do we kind of manage, or how do we manage that energy level? We're amped up, whether it be with coffee or from our workout, where do we go from there?
Yeah, I think where we go from there is if we have control over our schedule, which, if you're listening to this podcast, I think by now that we very much support people taking ownership of their work and ownership of their day. So I am a huge supporter of allowing people to the people who listen to us are not trying to fly under the radar of not doing anything or pull one over on anybody. So giving people the ability to take control and figure out, okay, the deep focus work that I need to do, what time of day, what in my schedule precedes this and me being able to execute on this deep focus work and be in this focused state. That is just the awareness, again, coming back to that awareness of, well, when do I seem to fall off in terms of my energy? And structuring our day around that, where we are able to, let's say, we're able to check our email a couple times a day and have that kind of like time carved out in our schedule. But we know, okay, at that time I can take a little break. I can sit down in my chair, maybe I've just gone for a walk. I can come back. And so taking ownership and crafting the day that kind of goes towards your fluctuation. So that's not something that today you will probably be able to really execute on. It takes some time. And so having that ability to maybe review how things have gone for you recently, thinking it through, or even just starting from where you're at right now and giving some thought and monitoring. Maybe every hour you check in. How do I feel? Am I being really productive in this moment, or do I need something more? Do I need to step away? Even with how much computer time we have, that's actually a really big one for our eye health. And so these eye doctors will recommend, okay, turn your head, look out the window, focus on something 50 feet away, make sure it's not all just right here, but set in that time, and you'll actually feel your body relax during those moments as well, because you're creating that time. So I think I didn't really answer that question, but having the breaks, having the ability to craft what we do and when we do it, I think that's an important next step as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you answered the question. I mean, it's basically, and again, as you'd mentioned, it's not something that may come naturally, but it's about being very focused on listening to your body and understanding your level of attention, and being able to understand as your day goes on, what are times of the day where you have that high energy, and where are times when that your energy is starting to fall off. And one of the things, and then matching the tasks, building your day around that, acknowledging that there are certain tasks that are going to require that higher level of focus versus some of the other tasks that may not require as much level of focus. And so one of the ways I sort of differentiate, I know we were just talking about this, differentiate between kind of what we'll call, the high energy demand tasks versus the low energy demand. And I think of it like, I think of your brain like as a computer processor, where, depending on the complexity of what you're doing, the level of, thinking that you need to do, it's going to require more energy versus things that just don't require that much, as cleaning out your email box and things like that. And one of the things that I think about, and maybe it's degraded with age, we'll reserve that conversation for later, but is what I find is that if I'm doing low energy tasks, things like just clearing out emails or just going through, quick reports and things, then that's something that I can do that work while I'm listening to music. When I first started my career, I worked for an engineering firm, and I did a lot of drafting, computer drafting, where a senior mechanical engineer would give me a set of red lines, or basically a sketch of what they wanted, and my only job was to translate that sketch onto the computer using the CAD tools. And that is very low energy. I'm not trying to be dismissive of all the very important CAD drafters out there, but it's something that doesn't require a lot of complex thinking. There's not a lot of critical analysis. You're simply taking one sketch and then drawing it on the computer. And so all day long, I'd be listening to music. What I found now is most of what I do today, I cannot listen to music while I'm working because it's distracting. And again, maybe it's with age. But I feel like if there's anything that requires a high level of critical thinking where I need to analyze and understand, comprehend, reports I'm reading or crafting, presentations, it's something that I cannot have that type of distraction. Or if it is music, it has to be, classical music or something that doesn't have words that are going to be flowing through my head. So anyway, so we have this kind of high level, high energy, and then this low energy work, and being able to identify where we are in the day, in the morning when we have high energy. So that's when we want to schedule kind of our high energy tasks versus maybe in the afternoon or right after lunch, when it may take you a little while to get into things. Maybe that's when you schedule your kind of your email catch up, things like that. So yeah, that's one part of it. And then you mentioned breaks. How often do you take breaks?
I take this is an interesting one because when I look at my day, I'll take a lunch break and that's usually it. However, when I'm coaching people, I take a small break before just to make sure that my energy level is good. I also make sure that I am nourished, that I am not frantic with caffeine, anything like that. So there's a time in the day where I accept my coaching clients on the calendar. And so that's pretty well structured for me already, but I like to make sure that I do have some time to ground. I take some deep breaths. There is something to be said about being able to do that before you hold space for someone and guide them through a process, a bit of an emotional journey. So I do that. And and I will say also, when I am creating something. So I have different levels of what I do in my company, but when I am creating something, I have to take multiple walk downstairs, maybe go outside, walk back upstairs, go to my desk. And so I would say that is pretty frequent. It only lasts for 1 or 2 minutes. So it's not like a full-on break, but it is this energy, because creativity really gets me going. I create a lot of content. I create a lot of different things for my community. So it's like, okay, we got you got to use up some of that. You have to, I don't know. It's not sounding so, I don't know, well explained in this, but I think you can relate. If you're really into something, you take a moment to step away, your wheels are still turning, and you return back to your desk, and then you're like, okay, yeah, let's revisit this.
Yeah. And it's and it varies with different people, right? Because I've read different reports that say how long can a person focus on a task at hand? And I've seen reports that say people can only really focus for about 15 to 20 minutes. I've seen where the magic number is like 60 to 90 minutes. I saw one report that said 4 to 5 hours. And so it varies. It varies widely with different people. And I think that if we're in tune with ourselves and start recognizing those signs of, you're kind of drifting off, or you're slowing down, you're not operating at optimal levels, then that's your body telling you that you have to take a break. And for me, I tend to make sure that I schedule my day in such a way that I can grab, maybe 5 minutes every few hours. I don't know that you should go more than 2-3 hours. You can't just work for 3 straight hours, because you'll burn yourself out and you'll exhaust yourself. It's sort of like a battery, right? You just have to you kind of working your way going into those energy stores, and you have to stop for a second and then allow it to recharge so that you can get back into things. But like you, I try to make myself take a structured lunch break. This whole idea of let's just work through lunch and just keep powering through just doesn't work, because you need that break that's more than just a minute or 5 minutes. And so working that in is really important. And then one thing, and people laugh at me when I tell them this, and I don't do it every day, but on days where I start early, got a lot, maybe I've been traveling a lot, my body's a little out of whack because of the time zones, is I do indulge in an afternoon nap. And
oh my God, I love this.
and
Yes, I
so
used to do this too.
so I remember when I was in my 20s or 30s, I would hear about people saying, oh yeah, I'm going to take a nap, and I would look at them and like, what are you, an infant? Who takes naps in the middle of the day? It sounded like a ridiculous thing for someone to say out loud, I'm going to take a nap. But I have found that if, as long as you've got to have a place for it. And obviously many of us were working from home, so finding a place is not difficult. I know that there are offices, office I had in San Diego, we had a room, kind of a stress-free room that had a sofa, so you could kind of relax and take a nap. And the last company I worked for also had a room specifically for that. And so you can find that place. And when I say nap, it's not like I'm going to sleep for an hour. I have actually set that I've spent quite a bit of time trying to experiment. 12 minutes. That's all I need is 12 minutes. And I will actually set my timer for 12 minutes, close my eyes. And in that time, you deep breath, kind of put yourself in that mindset, close your eyes, remove all distractions. And maybe within that 12-minute time span, I'm only actually asleep for like 7 minutes or 6 minutes of it. But I wake up and I feel great. When I wake up, I'm refreshed and I'm ready. I'm itching to get back at it. So if you've never tried that before, give it a shot. It's something that it's in a very short amount of time can be really refreshing. I think one of the reasons why is because you are fully disengaging when you go to sleep. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you're not dreaming of work, which that is too short a time. Your brain's not going to get into that dream mode. So it's strictly relaxing and forcing yourself to disconnect. And I think one of the challenges that we see when we take breaks is that we aren't actually taking a break. I remember, you mentioned, I need to go out for a walk. And I would do that where I'd tell myself, I'm not getting a lot, I need to take a break. I'm going to go force myself to go on a walk. And I'd immediately go outside, take a walk, put my headphones in and start listening to that podcast that I need to catch up on, or listen to a webinar that I missed earlier. And so you're not taking a break if your brain is you're still asking your brain to work at that level at which you're working at when you're actually working. You may not be doing work, the work per se, but your brain is still working. And that's a great thing about a nap is your brain shuts down.
Yeah. That's a huge tip. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that was something that I used to do as well. And I don't need it as much anymore because my energy level is vastly different than it was before several years ago. Sure. However, the disconnect that we have when we are able to, I would take my nap. I worked for Hewlett Packard at the time, and I would just go to the parking lot in my car in San Diego. And it was like, San Diego weather is absolutely beautiful. And so by around noonish, it's like, okay, it's 73, 75 degrees and sunny. And so I just take a deep breath, relax in my car, put my chair back. Sometimes I would listen to like a really grounding meditation. And
Okay.
it was amazing for my anxiety level, because at the time my anxiety was very high, cortisol very high as well. So our stress hormones, and having that real break where we are, if we're going on a walk, sometimes that's great for discharging that anxious energy, but also for replenishing it as well.
Yeah.
So I love what you had said about kind of like that balance of deposit versus withdrawal when it comes to
Yeah.
energy, because we are withdrawing a lot of energy throughout our day, but we need to actively make the time for deposits in. And I think the nap, I was the same way. About 15 minutes was all I needed. Game changer, game changer. And you know me, so you
Yeah.
know my bed of nails. If you've
Oh,
never,
yes.
if you're listening, if you're listening right now, get yourself a bed of nails. I am not joking. Instant bliss, relaxation after you do it a few times. Because in the beginning, you're like, I have to lay on a bed of nails, like these like pointy things. But I loved mine, and it was
Yeah.
really helpful in just kind of facilitating that
So,
relaxation response.
yeah, so I know for many people they're a little confused, and they're not a sponsor yet. But could
Yes.
you just really quickly talk about what is a bed of nails? What
So
is
the bed
that?
of nail, yeah. So the bed of nails is, I mean, you can Google the original bed of nails, which was truly a bed of nails. But what you have now is we have access to the bed of nails, and it's a little mat, smaller than a yoga mat. And it's kind of about the same size as your back. So you're able to lay it out on the ground or on your bed or on the couch, and you're able to just lay on it. And it's got these little pointy, kind of like these little pointy, I guess, knobs or something that have
Yeah.
pointy edges. And so they do, it's like acupressure.
Yes.
So it's giving you that acupressure along your entire back. And it pretty much instantly, after you relax into it, it turns on that relaxation response. So we're activating our parasympathetic branch of our nervous system, which is really important when it comes to just even managing stress and turning off our fight or flight response. And so it's great, and it's very travel friendly. So when I was doing different shows for different companies, and I'd go travel and we'd do like a convention or a trade show, I would pack it with me. It would fit in my suitcase
Yeah.
or in my carry-on, and I would bring it. And so when I'm an introvert by nature. Well, ambivert technically, but for me, being with people and being on and presenting things and training, that takes a considerable amount of energy. And
Yeah.
so I would be, if I have to do that for 4 days in a row for 8 hours, where I'm constantly mingling, by the end of that time, I am not doing well. My energy is completely depleted. So what I would do after I became aware that that is something that happened to me, what I did was I would take that time. I would say I'm going to just take 15 minutes, even if it's not the most convenient time right now. I'm going to
Yeah.
pull away here. I don't have to show up for absolutely every social activity. I don't have to be on this entire time. I still deserve some time to fill my cup. And so I would just kind of pull away. I would go lay on my bed of nails. I'd give it 10 to 20 minutes, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've done the same. So it does help. So you brought up something else that we haven't really touched on now. So much of our focus thus far during this conversation has been on how we manage our energy levels and schedule our day in such a way. And usually it's with the confines of your normal workday. And I think, some may be listening to this and think, wow, Michelle and Devin just want you to take a bunch of breaks and take naps during the day. And it may seem like, we're trying to, you're getting away from work, but what this does is by recharging yourself, it allows you to be much more productive in the time that you're working. And these things don't take a lot of time. They're things that have to be worked into your schedule. They're things that by law you're supposed to take, a lunch break when you're working a certain length of day. And so it's not something that it extends your day or is taking away from the work you're doing. It just greatly enhances the productivity of what you're doing. So as opposed to trying to power through a day and having, your output be, continuously diminishing throughout the course of the day. But the point that you brought up that I had a long way of getting around to is the fact that we often find ourselves in situations where we're not working within the confines of a normal workday. We're going to conferences, and I know, we've gone to conferences that could as long as a week long, where you have to be on. The expectation is that you're on the whole time. And I know that there's a couple of conferences that I go to throughout the year where, the day starts with breakfast meetings at 6 or 7 in the morning, and it's all day until dinner meetings and going out with customers for drinks after and things. So you're working, 16, 18-hour days for a week. And that is tremendously draining. And so it is important, as you'd mentioned, that there are times when you have to tell yourself, I don't have to be at every social event. I can take that break. But it's about checking yourself, checking your energy level so you know when you need to do that. Another thing is, we get into these, I mentioned these kind of all day meetings. And this goes back to this idea that it's so important that you give yourself that break, because I was actually in one of these all day meetings about 2 weeks ago. It was a training / planning meeting. And so, everyone's talking, there's a very packed agenda. It's very well scheduled, great agenda, right? Everything scheduled out. And, there's a time when I had a specific area I was scheduled to speak for maybe 20 minutes on this one topic. And so I gave my talk, and then, a couple other people spoke. And then the person managing the meeting said, okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break. And that's so important, right? To take that time to take a deep breath and to recharge. Well, as soon as they said 10-minute break, I had 2 people come up to me and say, hey, about what you said. And we started having this conversation. And it's a good conversation. It's a great conversation. And it's very timely. It's very important. It's on that focus. But then 10 minutes goes immediately. And then I realized I never got a break. Yeah. And it's sort of like, when we have these long meetings and there are scheduled breaks, take the breaks. Someone comes up to you and says, hey, about what you said, you say, great, we're going to talk about that, but right now I need to step outside and get some fresh air, go to the bathroom or something. So again, that was kind of, if anything, that's kind of my main thing, is make sure that you allow yourself when it is break time to take that break and allow your mind to shut down, whether it's taking a nap or just going out and walking outside and thinking of nothing.
Well, and a lot of this is self-directed.
Which
can be kind of problematic. It's not an easy answer. I mean, the thing about time management versus energy management is, for time management, it's like, okay, do these 6 things and you're going to have a super productive day. When we talk about energy management, it's like, okay, well, everybody is a little bit different. When Devin has energy at 5 a.m., Michelle may not have energy at 5 a.m. Michelle has energy at, let's say, 5 p.m. and gets this burst of creativity and like whatever it is. So this is self-directed of knowing yourself. So it's not that easy answer. We can't just very easily say, do these 3 things, you're going to be golden. Because everybody is different. And then we also want to be cognizant of, like, the event that you're talking about, that week-long conference. There's so much goodness in there. You have people coming from, in some cases, all over the world that are together. You have giant opportunities here. You want to to be there. You want to show up, but we also have to spend the time and have the confidence of telling other people. Maybe it's people who really want to, squeeze everything they can out of this and meet with you when it's like, okay, I'm at a low point right now, I need to recharge, and then we can do this. But there's no magic formula for, okay, this is the template. That also comes back to, what do you need? What do you need to be feeling good here? And even before and after. So if you have a week-long conference, maybe you spend 3 days kind of resting, relaxing, eating really nourishing foods. For a lot of these conferences, a lot of people are drinking, they're having wine every single night, and with their dinner at these amazing steakhouses in Chicago or wherever they are. I have been in that position before. It's like the best steak ever, and you can order anything that you want because so-and-so is paying for it. And it's like, okay, this is so great. But that's not our normal. That is not our normal. And so we have to, go ahead. I know you have something to say about that.
No, it's because one of the things that I don't want it to sound like I'm saying taking a break means disengaging. It doesn't have to be, because, you'd mentioned the conferences and the fact that you've got this opportunity to engage with so many people. And for many people, everyone's different, but for many people, that, being with other people, engaging in these conversations, that actually feeds your energy. Mm-hmm. And that is something that gives you that energy. So for some people, maybe being in that social situation is a drain. And so you need to pace yourself. You need to disengage and maybe, have to leave early or something. But for other people, having that engagement, having that level of interaction with other people actually feeds your energy and makes you feel, more, just more excited about things. And I think we've all been in conversations with people. We talk to people, and after that conversation, you actually feel like they gave you that energy. And so it's not always, breaks don't always have to be go in a corner by yourself and do nothing. It's different for every person, excuse me. And so recognizing what feeds your energy and what, I don't want to say drains, but that's what I'm going to say. What drains your energy, it's different for everyone. And so being able to recognize that will help you make sure that you're aligning your schedule, aligning your day in such a way that you've got that balance and you're able to come back, recharge, so you can do the work that you've identified that you need to do.
Yeah. And I also want to add too, this is playing the long game here when we talk about increasing our performance with managing our energy. We all have situations, circumstances where we're on a deadline, or we have a ton of work right now that we're trying to manage, or we do have that week-long conference where maybe we are hitting the coffee a couple times a day or not taking care as closely as we should. And so it's not just it's a long-term approach that I think can be really effective for people, but it does take some time of knowing, and it's not just, okay, shut it down, disengage, right? Like, we know that people have really big dreams, and sometimes taking the break right now, it's like, okay, well, take a break, but I have these 6 people over here I have not seen, or I have this meeting or this project that I do need to talk about right now. And so it really does come back to, you are the sovereign being that gets to make these decisions. And so having that ability and that choice, that's up to you. And so you use it for how you need. But I do think that it's a concept that I think can really make an impact as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will also say one thing here too, because I wanted to include this. And I know that we have male and female listeners. And so it's not just about the day-to-day energy. There's looking at this over the week. A lot of people like to take that Friday for that admin day or for those tasks where I know when I was working in an office, I actually worked at home on Fridays, and that was incredibly rejuvenating. I didn't have my commute. I didn't have peopling in the office. I wasn't at the water cooler talking to people or having other people come into my office and talk to me, and kind of I was able to manage my day. I had a lot of choice in that, especially on that Friday when that's what I did at home. I said, okay, cool. You can sleep in an extra half hour. You can go for a walk around your neighborhood with your dog. That was really cool for me. So I wanted to remind people that it's day by day, but we can also zoom out a little bit, go focus on that week. And then for women, especially, I don't think enough women know this, but throughout the month, your energy level is different because of the way that your hormones function. Men get the great advantage of having very stable hormones. I am so excited for you guys to have that. Your energy level, your testosterone, that very very consistent. And for women, it's not consistent over the month. It fluctuates. And so different times we can say, okay, do I want to be traveling this week of the month, or should I take some time and think about what's really happening for me during this time and kind of structure that in a more self-compassionate, nurturing sort of way.
Yeah.
So I know that doesn't apply to everybody, but I did want to mention it because when the people that are in my circles, when we talk about this, they're like, oh, wow, that actually makes a huge difference for me. And I'm sure if you're one of those that can probably take something away from that, you'll know that, okay, I'm beginning to see how that has shown up for me in my schedule as well.
Okay. So that's a great takeaway for male and female. So other takeaways, I mean, I would say, again, I've kind of beat it over the head many times, but it's understanding kind of where you're at from an energy level standpoint throughout the day, and then managing your tasks accordingly, and the importance of taking those breaks. And they could be, a 1 minute meditation break, just a deep breath. It could be that 12-minute nap, which if you haven't tried,
golden ticket right there.
Or just, taking that 5 minutes to truly, disconnect from what your workday is. I think that will really help maintain a more consistent level of energy throughout the day and allow you to be as productive as possible. So that's my takeaway, my big thing at the end.
Yeah. I love it. I think that my takeaway here is figuring out where you're at currently and being able to make decisions alongside that. So having that self-awareness and those check-ins regularly and saying, is this withdrawing or is this an energy deposit for me? And being able to kind of take ownership of that. I think that's a good starting point for everybody.
All right. Well, great.
All right. Well, we will talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. Take care.